Oh, what is up, diehards? Welcome back. It's Monday, degenerates. Die Hard MMA podcast coming at you. Coming off a gigantic winning weekend. Back in the black. The units are positive. We got a new 205-pound champion. What more could you ask for? How is everybody doing this evening? The tape is coming off my head here. I had to not move for the last 10 minutes to keep this thing on my head. You have no idea the level of effort this horrible little prop has put on me this afternoon. I see some names here in the chat. I love Clinty baby. What's up, Mushroom? How we doing? Levi the White Bull. Alan loves MMA saying greetings from Indianapolis. Let's get a super book up here. I like the idea. They're spreading around. We'll get there eventually. Eric Betts fights F Gorilla. We've got Rob Lawrence, Nick Sissons, Papa Chuck, my guy Walla Dose. Everybody rolling in here. How we do? Okay, this thing literally is falling off me right now. I got to get it off my head, but I had to rock the Jiri hair for y'all today. I'm gonna hang on to that. I hope everybody is doing well. Boy, do I feel good. Got the monkey off my back. You know, all the haters, all the shit talkers, y'all are the good ones. You're the good ones. You had the faith, but everybody else saying that I was a bum. I'm working for the books. I'm trying to give everybody bad picks. Bad, rough start to the year, folks. It's not how you start. It's how you finish. We are positive for the first time in 2022. It is about damn time. Called the Jake Matthews round 2. Aha! Knockout 13-1 prop. Oh, the only way it could have been better is if I had cashed the 13-1 multi-leg parlay. Somehow these guys go over 4.5 in the main event. No idea what the hell happened there. I did a recap on my own personal YouTube channel of the entire show right after because the pain was just too much for me. I had to talk to somebody about it. But we damn near set the podcast record for single night profitability. That would have been it had we hit that 13-1 parlay. At any rate, that's enough patting myself on the back. That's enough celebrating last week. As you all know how we do around here, you put it behind you regardless of a win or a loss, and you focus on the new battle. We got UFC Austin coming up. It is a damn good card right in Pub Sports Radio's backyard. Make sure you subscribe if you haven't and smash that like button. But I got a damn good guest for you guys. Somebody I've been following and looking up to in the MMA community for a long time from the Action Network. None other than Dan Stoop himself. Dan, how you doing tonight, my man?
Good. How you doing? I'm sorry I didn't come in costumes.
I should have given you a heads up. You could have worn the Brazilian flag and we could have done Glover versus Jiri round 2 on the podcast.
Good stuff. Thanks for having me on. It's long overdue, and I've been really enjoying everything you've been doing in the MMA betting space, so I'm glad I could join you.
I appreciate that, Dan. Seriously, from the bottom of my heart. And like you mentioned, long overdue. It's a pleasure to have you here on the show with us today. And we have just got an absolute banger of a card to talk about. We were talking about it backstage just a little bit before we got the show rolling here, that this is maybe not the best card from a betting perspective. I do think there are some spots. I think we'll be able to find some opportunities on this card, but it's going to be really good from an action and viewing standpoint, in my opinion.
Yeah, no, last week's card, obviously pay-per-view expectations were high. I think the card itself, it delivered some good fights, but you want to see those big names on paper and stuff. And for a non-pay-per-view, obviously it's an ESPN card. That's probably a small step up from the Fight Pass or the ESPN Plus cards. That's how old I am, calling them Fight Pass cards. But there's some great names. In fact, the Curtain Jerker has a pretty awesome fight. So I think top to bottom, this is a pretty great card.
There's a lot of names on here that kind of belong on pay-per-view cards, Dan. There's a lot of people that we've seen on pay-per-view cards. So like, I don't know, man. This seems like a B-level pay-per-view that we're getting for free on Saturday. I feel like this is a really good card from a name value perspective, and I'm just pumped up. We got a good group of people here, 80 already live viewers in the chat. Thank you all very much. You know the deal. Hit the like button for me, and we're going to get right on into this bad boy for you. First fight of the night, Phil Hawes taking on Deron Winn. Now, I'm not going to borrow Uncle Wheezy's joke because he just absolutely nailed it on Stat Diggers. But this fight has been booked and has fallen apart multiple different times. These guys, for whatever reason, the UFC likes the matchup. I'm not quite sure who they're pushing, but they like the matchup. And Deron Winn, I believe, is pulled out twice now. So they're kind of resetting here. Phil Hawes, 11-3. Deron Winn, 7-2. And Phil Hawes, everybody on this show knows, Dan is my favorite punching bag. I love the opportunity to fade Phil Hawes. It's not that he's a bad guy. It's not that he's a bad fighter. He has questionable durability, questionable gas tank, and questionable heart. None of those things are awful, but when you put the trifecta together in one human being, I like to try to get a price against him. And that offensive, explosive power that he has always has him overpriced as a favorite. So it's not that I necessarily think he's actually going to lose every single fight that he's in. It's just that I always think that there's value on the dog. Here in Deron Winn, though, we've got mini DC. I mean, absolutely to a T, miniature Daniel Cormier here. The guy is a high caliber wrestler. He's got fast hands. He crashes the pocket, does pretty good work in the pocket, actually. But he just forces his way into that body lock and grinds people to the ground. That's what he does. He averages 4.98 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 52% accuracy. Problem is he's going up against Phil Hawes, where the one thing that I'm like, all right, Phil, like I can't find a single way to talk trash on you here, is his 100% takedown defense rating. You don't take Phil Hawes down. So what we're going to probably get is a 15-minute kickboxing fight where these two grapplers can't really engage in that area, or it's a unstoppable force versus an immovable object, Dan. And these guys, Deron Winn is going to try to do the impossible and get Phil Hawes to the mat, which if he does go that route, I think Winn has the better gas tank of the two. He could end up kind of breaking Phil the further the fight goes on. I'm kind of a little tempted on maybe a live bet spot where if Deron Winn survives round one, maybe we get a better line and he starts chipping away at the gas tank of Phil Hawes and we get like a plus 350 or a plus 400 after the first round. Currently lined minus 250 Phil Hawes, plus 200 the underdog Deron Winn. What do you think of this first fight of the night here, Dan?
Yeah, I favor Hawes. I think the line's actually probably pretty accurate. I think if you're going to play it, I think you found kind of the right way to play it. I could see, and it's not just that Hawes could win the first round. I think kind of maybe odds makers and just casual viewers, if you see Deron lose that first round, you're going to chalk it up to just the size disadvantage and everything. Like I think people are going to write him off too quickly in this fight. I think he can find a way to hang around. We know Hawes' chin can get tested, and I think especially fighting a guy kind of built like a bowling ball like that, he's going to be coming at weird angles that, probably he just hasn't seen that much. I think Cormier was kind of a fun fighter to watch because guys just hadn't fought too many guys like him before. So it kind of creates some interesting things. Like I said, though, I think it's lined properly. I think I was looking at the early lines for go to decision versus not go to decision. Didn't really see anything I like there. So I think a lot of people are going to be willing to throw Hawes into a parlay just because he's kind of in that golden range, minus 200, minus 300. I just don't think that's the right play. I think if you're going to play anyone, it's Winn. And if you're going to, you might as well wait until after the first round.
Dan, I completely agree with you, and I'm glad you said that because this was going to be my parlay PSA for the week. My guy Locker Room, him and I so when my guy Locker Room and I end up on a play together, Dan, we've got a ridiculous hit rate. We crush when we're on the same page, but that is like 5% of the time. We're always head-to-head on these spots, and he's got Phil Hawes in a parlay. So Locker Room buddy, I hate to say it, but like this is my spot where I'm going to tell people don't parlay Phil Hawes. just because he always comes at that big chalky price tag, and he's got enough chinks in the armor that I do think he can be taken advantage of. Deron Winn is super durable with a good gas tank, and those are the two things I look for when I'm trying to fade Phil Hawes. Because if you can eat one or two of those big shots and then you can put a pace on this man, you've got the chance to break him later in the fight. We saw Chris Curtis do it. Obviously, that's a completely different caliber of fighter than Deron Winn, but he's got the tools. So I'm glad we kind of see this one the same here to start. No official bet for me going on, but maybe it's a dog or pass spot. Maybe it's a live bet opportunity. And my guy, Derek Wilcox in the chat, nailing it right on the head. Maybe the round 3 TKO makes a comeback here this week. I did have the round 3 TKO. I think Winamavov fought Phil Hawes. So we were this close. Hawes was on wobbly legs for the second and third rounds of that fight. Somehow survived it, managed to actually get the win. So he's been able to, drag the fights late and win decisions. So maybe he's still got something in the tank. Maybe this is a low enough caliber fight for him to win. We'll see. Locker room saying agree, just not a Winn fan. We're opposite sides here. I'm just not a Hawes guy. So both of us are pre-biased here on this first fight. All right, next fight up, Dan. We've got Kyle Daukaus taking on Roman Dolidze, and this is a really, really fun fight for me here. I've talked a couple times about the Daukaus brothers. Love these guys. And I've used that example of where with the siblings in MMA, there's always an A side and a B side, right? Like one of the siblings is always just head and shoulders above the other.
Why you got to do damn this on like that?
Perfect example. Like there's one that's not quite as good as the other one. And for the longest time, or I guess not the longest time, they haven't been around that long, I first thought that Kyle was the A side. And then I went, holy crap, maybe Chris is the A side brother. And now I'm like, geez, like this might be the first time that there's no A side, B side. Like both these guys are just legitimate talents. I'm really impressed with the Daukaus brothers. Strong grappling, sick BJJ from both of them. Kyle Daukaus has shown off some really improved boxing and footwork in his last couple fights. The kid is coming along. He's 11-2. He's going to have a 1-inch height advantage here in this spot. They've got the same reach. Roman Dolidze, 9-1. One of these Georgian warriors. Everybody knows, I've got that bias for the Georgian fighters. Absolutely love the toughness and durability from these guys. But I don't think he's the one, man. He's a little bit older. And he's cutting down to 185. He's massive at 185. He used to fight up at 205. But I do think that weight cut takes a bit of a toll on him. He's got a questionable gas tank. He's a high-level grappler, extremely level-high BJJ credentials, but he's got such bad IQ, Dan. He does stupid things. Do you want me to submit him? Like the whole, playing with his food thing, he does that a little bit too much. Big, powerful kicks when he's up on the feet, but he's a bit slow. He's a bit plodding. He reminds me a little bit of Yoel Romero, where he can redline and completely gas out, but just wills himself through the exhaustion to stay in the fight. But he's tough. He's durable. I guess my biggest problem, he's got a bit of a fraudulent UFC record. The fighters that Dolidze has defeated in the UFC were my literal bottom tier of the division, and none of them have jobs anymore with the organization. So I'm not impressed whatsoever with Dolidze. However, we do have another gigantic line here in this spot where Daukaus opened up about -160, -170, and now he's steamed all the way up to about -140 in some places. If you want on the Daukaus train, you better get on quick. I'm tempted to toss him in a parlay myself because I do think he's the right side. But I could also see this fight playing out relatively close. I think Dolidze will land the power strikes. I think Daukaus will be the more technical fighter. He'll have a speed advantage here in this spot. When they get into the grappling exchanges, I expect some high-level grappling, some chess on the ground. And I almost think we're going to get kind of a scrambly 15-minute decision because I don't think either of these guys is going to be able to finish the other one, Dan. How about you? What do you got going on here in this fight?
Yeah, no, I think you broke it down well. I think that was the big thing that stuck out to me was I feel like this one goes the distance. I like Daukaus. I was originally looking at Daukaus via decision. I was hoping it'd be better than 2-1. I don't think it will be. I think he's just a little bit better kind of everywhere. There's also some question marks with Dolidze. I think he fought, a year ago, and it wasn't all that impressive. You just kind of wonder, especially as guys are getting a little older, layoffs and stuff. they're not going to come back all of a sudden with a new toolkit of skills like they would, in their earlier mid-20s. So no, I think it's probably lined right. I know some places have this fight listed as the curtain jerker, which seems kind of crazy. I'm hoping they're doing it just because they want to kind of start with a bang and maybe some guys that you've heard of before. But I don't know. It seems like an odd fight. It seems like a main card fight. I think it could be good. I expect it to go to 15 minutes. I just think Daukaus is going to be probably better everywhere. Maybe not substantially, but over the course of 15 minutes, that's how you win fights.
Yeah, I think, and their chat nailed it here, saying that Daukaus is showing improvements, Dolidze is not. And I think it's pretty much as simple as that. I really do, because Roman Dolidze is almost looking like a finished product at this point. I don't expect big improvements from him. And when he can't knock somebody out clean, he doesn't have a plan B. He's got to get the finish. Otherwise, it's going to be a hairy, close decision with him kind of hanging on for dear life. What we've seen, especially from the judging lately, the last couple of weeks, and people have been getting really mad, Dan, it's volume. They're favoring the striking volume right now. So for me, it's a clear Daukaus spot, because as long as he doesn't get severed from his consciousness by Dolidze's head kick or something like that, he's going to outwork him. And I think he'll just get the nod in a 15-minute decision.
I think especially in that later round too. And obviously, if it's 1-1, it's coming down to that last round. So even if Roman sneaks out, a round at some point, I don't see him getting two. So.
Yeah, I agree. And I think if he does sneak out around, it's going to be kind of a blanket top control, right? Like, I don't see him doing much beyond, or maybe a knockdown. Like, I guess, again, if he lands one of those big power shots, gets a knockdown, and the judges give him the whole round for the one knockdown, I guess that's on the table as well, but I don't really expect that.
Yeah.
All right. So we are seeing eye to eye so far here, everybody. Real quick, I do want to take just a second to shout out the sponsor of the show. I'm going to combo shout out and roast the sponsor of the show. Superbook Sports has sponsored us here, and my lines for the show and the podcast all come from Superbook Sports. First off, nothing but great things to say. They're wonderful people. They're giving us insider sharp action information at the end of the week now. We got that set up, so I'll be able to pass that along to you all on the Friday shows. But they don't have lines up for UFC Austin. Superbook Sports, get your shit together. It's Monday. Last week we didn't have props, and now we don't even have lines. So I do apologize. We're not going to have
I was going to be super polite and use Superbook's lines whenever we discussed any fights, and I couldn't find them. So I was like, oh, maybe you have to be in Arizona. But no,
it's a bit of a bummer. But Dan, they've got some stuff on their plate. There's, I guess, a basketball game going on tonight. Something important, maybe, that I'm sure we'll get lines popping up in the next day or two once we get by these couple of, big events that they're a little bit more focused on. So, no big deal. Seriously, Superbook, I love you guys. Thank you very much for everything.
We're MMA fans. We're very demanding, and we expect we're going to be bigger than the NFL someday. That's what we're told. So.
We will get there eventually. Until that time, we are niche, and I understand we're niche. We're not the priority. It's okay. We'll get there. All right. Cody Stamann taking on Eddie Wineland. A couple names I never thought I would see side by side, Dan. I don't know why, but this one completely caught me off guard. Cody Stamann is a guy I feel like I've had a really, really good read on for the course of his career. 19-5-1. Eddie Wineland, 24-15-1. Obviously kind of winding down. Eddie Wineland is 37 years old at this point, and he got KO'd dead in his last two events back to back. Like, you got to start worrying when these old school warriors start having that chin cracked a little bit. It becomes a problem, and the retirement days are not far off when that starts to happen.
And it's not even the knockouts. Even when he's winning, he's getting like completely destroyed. Like, the poor guy does not look human after every one of his fights. Like, I don't want to throw in the towel before the fight even starts, but my God, we're going to get Eddie Wineland killed.
It's tough. It's really tough. And this is not a spot where the UFC is doing him any favors. I mean, his opponent is not a power puncher, right? Cody Stamann, that's kind of the one thing, is that he's a good technical boxer. He's a point striker and a wrestler. He's not a guy that's going to come in and take your block off. So maybe they're giving him a guy who he's saying, look, just don't kill me and give me a fight that I can maybe win. So all right, here's a guy that's going to look to take you down instead of knocking your head off. Yeah, this could be the time where Cody Stamann finally gets a ground and pound TKO. Like if he lands the right shot, if Eddie's chin is just done, then maybe Cody finally ends up getting his knockout, even with the pillow fist that he's got over there. He's just a grinder, Dan. I really like Cody Stamann. He knows how to win fights. And from a sports gambling perspective, that's what we're looking for. If you've got a good soldier that you know exactly what he's going to do every single fight, that's a guy you like to get behind. But, no free money in sports gambling. The bookies aren't dumb. Cody Stamann is somewhere between minus 450 and minus 525, depending on where you look in the market right now. Come back on Eddie Wineland, plus 320, plus 360. He's all the way up to plus 385 in some spots. I mean, I can't disagree with the money. Eddie Wineland has a solid 86% takedown defense. He's got a 5-inch reach advantage, but he's only got a 29% striking accuracy. And that's how he kind of made his name, with those big looping punches that come from an angle that you don't see, but he misses on a lot of those. So yeah, maybe he can defend some takedowns from Cody. Can he do it for 15 minutes straight? I'm not sure. Cody's a really good wrestler. He's got that 5-inch reach advantage. But if Cody gets in the pocket with that boxing, the way his chin is cracked, I'm worried Cody can maybe finally land a big knockdown or a knockout shot. It's a big step down in competition for Cody Stamann. Seems like a get-right spot for me. I am tempted here to parlay up Cody Stamann before that line gets too out of control, but it's kind of already getting out
minus
of control.
500, and you're like, well, it's going to get out of control.
I mean, it seems like Eddie Wineland's only got a puncher's chance, though. I don't mean to be disrespectful, but that seems like what we've got here. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was going to say the line's inflated, but I think it's completely justified. And, I was looking at this fight, and I was wondering, like you said, is the UFC punishing Wineland? Or I feel like they're throwing him a bone, maybe, like you said. I think Stamann doesn't have a finish in 6 years, doesn't have any in the UFC.
It's almost the best they can do for him, right?
Right. But then it's like, oh, wait, are they trying to build Stamann up that he can get a finish by throwing him Wineland? It's like, which is just the downfall of booking old vets who, have shown to take damage and stuff. Like, I'm a huge Eddie Wineland fan. Like, I was at his UFC debut, which, 2011, and I felt like, oh, he's an old champ, they'll probably keep him around for the UFC a year or two. That's more than a decade ago. So obviously he's had a good run. I don't think there's any shame if we put him out the pasture. Like you said, he's got a reach advantage. He's got the puncher's chance. It's just with those looping punches, I think it's just going to make it even easier for Cody to get the takedown, to keep him down there. I could see him maybe, kind of finally getting a ground and pound stoppage and stuff. But, looking at the early lines, fight go to decision, I think it's in the neighborhood of minus 160. I know we give a lot of credit to Wineland's durability, but I think this is a matchup where you don't have to worry about that one punch, putting him face first into the mat like you do with some other fighters in the division. So I don't know. Like you said, I could see parlaying them. I think anytime anyone gets to minus 500, I just kind of, look to see if there's an alternate angle, which fight goes to decision. Maybe there's an over that I like, maybe even parlay that. But I get sad betting against guys like Wineland, and I don't see a good way to bet for in favor of him. So that's
sometimes it's hard to be an MMA fan and gambler, right? Like when these old legends come down the line, you're just like, oh, like do I really want to put $50 in my pocket because my favorite fighter just got knocked dead on Saturday?
No, it's funny you mentioned. I kind of got into the MMA gambling after covering MMA for probably a decade, and a big reason I did it was just that covering the industry side of it, the business side of it, the regulatory affairs, like it's depressing. Like it wears on you, especially when it's your life 24/7 and you're covering every story and stuff. And the betting was kind of a nice escape from that. And for the most part, you can kind of get away from the ugliness and stuff. But then you get fights like this where it's like, okay, there's a business aspect to this. Like, should we still be putting guys like this out there? Like,
yeah,
who's going to be the person to say enough is enough? And I think the UFC is very inconsistent with that, where they really do kind of feel like protect some guys rightfully so, and do the right thing. Then they keep throwing out guys like Wineland, and I just don't get it sometimes.
Yeah, there's the business side of it where, it makes me sad because, like, as a fan, we want these guys to ride off into the sunset, but also the fighters, some of them don't have a plan B. Some of them don't have another way to put food on the table and save for retirement. So they got to keep fighting. So, it's a tough line to tiptoe for these guys, unfortunately. Yeah. All right, so far, Dan and I are pretty much in lockstep here. Next fight up, we've got Danny Chavez taking on Ricardo Ramos. And if you guys have been with me for a bit, you would know that I've got a strange attachment to these mid to low tier fighters who have decent power and are relatively disappointing. So I'm a Danny Chavez guy. Like, he's not to be insulting or anything like that, but these guys that are just kind of, they make it to the UFC, they show off some pop, some power, they're tough, they're grinders, they're durable, but let's be real, they're not gonna like make a championship run. I just fall in love with those guys. You know what I mean? The Sam Alveys, the Danny Chavezes, they're just my boys. I love to see the hard-nosed fighters get their shot, finally make it to the big show, and I just want them to succeed with all my soul. I think I've bet on Danny Chavez every single fight so far in the UFC. And he's won 1-1 so far. He's got a draw, a win, and a loss. And he's just a warrior, man. He's one of these Colombian warriors training out of a good gym. He's at MMA Masters. He's incredibly durable. He's a Chuck Liddell style wrestling in reverse type of wrestle boxer. Big explosive takedowns, good strong body lock. He likes to rip the body and wear on the gas tanks of his opponents. He's too low volume for me, though. He's a bit hesitant on the feet. Kind of a one-and-done striker, and that's not the best game plan unless you're knocking people's heads off Ngannou style, and in the UFC, his power has not quite translated. Now, I don't know if that's something that maybe will eventually translate. We see that with younger regional scene fighters, where if they're killing everybody on the regionals, they go 1 or 2 decisions in the UFC, and then they put it together, and then they start killing people in the UFC also. I'm not sure if Danny Chavez is quite at that point where he's going to be a completed fighter, or whether he's going to take one leap in his skill set and be able to start putting people away at this level or not, because it's a little late in the game for him. Now, he does average 2 takedowns per 15 minutes, solid 60% accuracy with an 87% takedown defense himself. So this guy does have a tendency to kind of determine where the fight is going to take place. Taking on Ricardo Ramos, 15-4. This guy is 9 years younger. He gives me Charles Oliveira vibes. The guy that has some chin issues, the guy that can't quite put it all together, great frame for the division, tall, long, knows how to strike, slick jiu-jitsu player. Like, he's got all the pieces. It's just a matter of him putting the whole game together. He knows how to use his reach on the feet. He's got a nice long jab. He throws some spinning kicks. He's got that nasty low calf attack. It's all good stuff. But he kind of tends to get out-muscled. He's not the best wrestler. He uses trips to get the fight to the ground, or if people dive on him after he's been clipped or something like that. You look at his last couple fights, though, he managed to survive, but like Tuhugov had him hurt early in round 1 in their fight. His chin is a liability, and he dips his head off to the side basically every single striking exchange. I think someone with a solid left hook can take advantage of him. He's going to have a 5-inch reach advantage here in this spot. Will Ricardo Ramos, he averages 2.61 takedowns per 15 minutes with a 72% accuracy, which I was very surprised by. Like, running back his tape on his fights, it doesn't seem like he's that aggressive with his takedowns. It also doesn't seem like he's that successful with his takedowns. So I'm questioning a little bit there on those numbers. But Ricardo Ramos is a -300 favorite. The underdog is somewhere between +235 and +250. Again, we don't have Superbook lines for this particular show, so we're going with the around the market numbers like we used to. And I mean, Dan, I am almost talking myself a little bit here into another dog or pass spot. It's just a spot where I've seen Ricardo Ramos falter. I've seen him get wobbled. I've seen that chin get chipped away, but I can't ignore the youth advantage. I can't ignore the reach advantage. But I really think Danny Chavez is going to decide where this fight takes place, unless this is that fight where Ricardo Ramos finally puts it all together. I think that Danny will be the one determining if they're striking or if they're grappling. And even if he is a little bit low volume, the way this guy has been rocked and hurt before, I think Danny might be the guy to finally clip him and put him down. I don't know if I want to pay I don't know if plus 235, plus 240 is enough quite for a puncher's chance for me. Maybe I play the knockout prop. I can also see him kind of grinding with the grappling just a little bit and staying safe. He is solid with his submission defense, so it's not like if it hits the ground, then it's just going to be over and Ricardo Ramos is a shoe-in. But like I said, Charlie O vibes, where I doubted that man for years and years and years. Maybe my least profitable fighter of all time because of how much I've tried to bet against Charles Oliveira and it has not panned out for me. So I'm not exactly jumping for joy to do that again with a guy like Ricardo Ramos that just reminds me so much of your current lightweight champion. Talk to me, Dan. What are you doing here on this one?
No, I was kind of leaning Ricardo and maybe Ricardo versus or via decision if I could get it, close to even. You're kind of talking me out of it, though. So I don't know. I think you gave a pretty good breakdown there. You're right. Ricardo's going to have that nice reach advantage, which I think he can really use to help dictate parts of the fight. But you're right. I think Danny's going to probably push it a lot more. And if the fight hits the ground, it's probably going to be because of something Chavez did. I don't know. I didn't have a real strong opinion on this fight. And you've damn near talked me into taking an underdog. So good job.
Well, if the line continues getting wide, like Dan, you know how I roll. Like I love backing the underdogs. I love trying to find those value spots where, if I bet 3 underdogs and I go 2-1, it's a damn good night. Or if I bet, if I hit the plus 300 and I break even on a 1-2 night, I don't care. That's fine. Yeah. Like Chavez is my kind of guy when it comes to that. So I'm a little tempted. Haven't made a decision whether or not I'm betting it yet, but I do think it's a dog or pass spot. It's also probably another really good live betting opportunity. Mm-hmm. I think that you can watch this one relatively closely and kind of feel the shift of these fighters. You'll know real quick if Ramos has finally put his game together or Danny will be in another brawl. And I think if you see Ramos starting to kind of crack a little bit, you can get in on the dog. Maybe not at a better number, maybe at a slightly worse number, but you might be able to make a much more intelligent bet on this one mid-fight.
Yeah, I don't do a whole lot of live betting. It's not kind of built for my personality where I don't like making snap decisions that I instantly regret. Like I try to do a little live betting. But no, I think you laid out a really good blueprint if you were going to dabble in it for this fight. I think you're going to know in that first minute or not whether Danny has a chance. And I think if he does have a chance, the later the fight goes, he's going to start seeing some of those openings and anything could happen then.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, yeah, that one's going to be interesting. It will be really, really interesting to see what ends up happening here. The one other thing I do want to point out is that the draw for Dan Chavez came from the Kai Kamaka fight where he got that really bad eye poke and then that really bad low blow. I also think that there is maybe a degenerate shot that if you guys want to play the point deduction props, this one might be a decent one to target. Because if Chavez does, for whatever reason, decide to use his wrestling offense, I do think that his opponent is the type of guy that will grab the fence trying to keep himself from going down. When you get these long, rangy fighters, they tend to do the John Jones finger thing.
I was gonna say, you get the eye pokes.
Yes, you might end up with another eye poke spot. And you know what? I don't know what it is, Dan, but these people that get fouled, they're like magnets. You know what I mean? Like Bisping always had people going in after his eye. Like we've got Sam Alvey who gets cup checked every single fight. Like some of these guys just attract the fouls. And it seems like Chavez might be one of those guys. And Eric's saying, what is this point deduction prop? I've heard of yam bags, and that's correct, Eric. I apologize. Thank you for correcting me. If you want to get down on a yam bag, they tend to be 20-1 over on DraftKings, and this might be one worth a sprinkle. I shouldn't have said that bookie's name, my bad. All right, moving the show right along, Dan. One more time, shout out to the chat while I get this next fight lined up here for us. I wasn't prepared. I was getting too yam-baggy. We got 155 live viewers. Dan Stoop has joined us tonight. Thank you so much for giving your time to us. Everybody, make sure you check him out. Give him a follow if you haven't already. Gloria de Paula taking on Maria Oliveira. And I can't wait to get roasted for this fight, Dan. I think
we're both going to, so go ahead.
All right. I love it. No, I don't know if you know my guys over there from the MMA engine, the engineers, Brady, DFS by the numbers, Uncle Wheezy, Lou, those guys, they do great work. But They are my they're my orderlies, Dan. And anytime there's a fight that you just simply should not be betting, they call the orderlies on you. They will show up at your house. They will, my guy Uncle Wheezy threatens to beat you with a bag of oranges. And this is the spot. This is the bet where they have already put their stamp on it. You're not allowed to touch this one unless you want these boys knocking on your door. A very low-level women's MMA fight. Gloria to Paula 6-4. Maria Oliveira 12-5. Gloria to Paula very light on her feet. Nice footwork. I really like what I see from her in the striking range. She's got a good stinging jab. She is apparently a kickboxing champion from Brazil before she switched over to MMA. I do like what she does in the clinch. Good knees up against the fence. Very fresh in round 3. Good solid gas tank. However, she also has a 65% striking defense so far in the UFC. So solid striking stats from Gloria to Paula, just not high on experience or opposition level. Oliveira 12-5, 0-2 so far in the UFC. She got brought in to get starched by my girl Mariana Rodriguez in her debut. Tough run, tough way to start your UFC run there. But she is extremely lanky and long. Good kicks from range. She swings big punches, backpedals her way out of counter range from her opponent. Honestly, she's fought a horrible level of competition, but she is not a bad striker. She will have a 2-inch reach advantage here in this spot. Got into the UFC for beating an 0-0 soccer mom. I roasted her relentlessly for that. We've done well betting against Maria Oliveira so far. However, she did not look bad in her last fight against Tabitha Ricci. And Gloria to Paula, while she got it done in her last fight, has not looked incredible and is 2-3 in her last 5 fights as well herself. Call me crazy, Dan. I'm just going to get right to it. I think there's some value on the dog here because I do think that this is going to be a striking match. I don't know that Gloria to Paula is coming in here with her singlet on, looking to take this thing to the ground and make it a grind. So because of that, you've got a 6-4 fighter who is a -300 favorite. She's -275, -260, and you've got +200, +210 on the underdog. I could be talked into a bet here on Maria Oliveira, believe it or not. Would love to hear your thoughts here on this fight, Dan.
I am right there with you. I like this bet. I like this underdog play. And maybe it's for the wrong reasons. You take 2 women's strawweights without a whole lot of experience against subpar competition. I mean, part of me is like, I don't care who it is. It's basically a 50-50 fight at that point. And if you're giving me 2-1 odds on one of them, I mean, I think you can find plenty of reasons to like this bet. You can probably find just as many not to like the bet. But when you're dealing with so many unknowns, a 2-1 price, like I said, on a women's fight, where plenty of them, I mean, anything could happen. I mean, what's probably going to happen is 15 minutes of stuff we really don't want to watch. Yeah, but I think that, like I said, it feels like a 50-50 fight, even if it's not. I know there's a lot more that goes into it. But again, like you're seeing fighters who change a lot from fight to fight because they are kind of inexperienced. Even if they get a good fight, or even if they do a pro fight or two, or they really learning a lot from it when they're fighting someone who's 0-1 or 2-3, especially after you've 7 or 8 fights and you're still fighting them. And I know there's not a ton of quality opposition out there to fight, but again, you've got 2 kind of unknowns, and you give me 2-1 odds on one of them, I'm going to take it. That's basically my breakdown.
Dan, I'm right there with you. I feel like this is going to be a close fight. I feel like it's going to be a competitive striking matchup. I don't know that one fighter has the skill set to abuse the weakness of the other, so it probably plays out pretty close. If you're going to have me flipping coins out here, I'll take the one that's +220.
Well, and we just know kind of the small underdogs historically in MMA, they're somewhat profitable. You fine tune that. You can make them even a little more profitable. When I started betting, I mean, that was basically kind of my whole philosophy is I know small underdogs can be profitable. Let's try to fine tune it a little and put a little more reason into it. And that's kind of how I started the first year or two, and kind of found my way. And a lot of times it was fights like this where you're just so many unknowns. No one should be a 2-1 favorite. It's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah. Now, my guy Uncle Wheezy is going to be threatening me with a bag of oranges, knocking on my door. So maybe passing, Fireball and popcorn, folks. If you're gonna rock the Die Hard merch on Saturday, this is your Fireball and popcorn fight. Stay away from it. Go grab a drink. Don't bet on it. It's probably fine. But I actually think there's a half decent shot that we get an upset here in this one. And this also might be my degenerate split decision for the week, because when you get these plus 200 underdogs, Dan, the split decision props are nuts, because they don't think they're going to win at all, and they think the favorite will be relatively dominant, so they give you gigantic numbers on the split decision props. This may be a sprinkle on that split decision prop, because I think we're going to get a 15-minute competitive kickboxing match, and it could go either way when it's said and done. People are going to be screaming at the judges in robbery on this one. So give me all the odds stacked up on either side for this one. Maybe bet the dog, maybe bet the split decision prop without picking a side, maybe bet the dog by split.
We've got a live crowd, and we've got a live crowd in Texas. Like, they're going to play with those judges so much that we're going to see some weird stuff.
Oh, Dan, you are a master of filling the holes here that I'm leaving behind. Folks, this is UFC Austin. We haven't talked about the judging. You got to be careful this week. Public PSA. Everybody be on notice. You want to bet on fighters that are going to finish the job for you. If you're betting on anybody going to decision this week, be prepared to lose that ticket. Like, it does not matter how clear as day the fight is. Texas officials are the worst we have ever seen. When the UFC goes to Texas, it's a shit show every single time. So just be warned. If you think you're on the right side and it makes it the full 15 minutes, you still could be stuck ripping up your ticket at the end of that one. So just be aware going in. You want finishers in Texas.
One of the very first events I covered in person was one of the first HDNet Fights events, where they actually did events under the HDNet Fights name, and Mark Cuban was there. It was kind of his event. Nice. And it was in Dallas. And I remember the fighters were weighing in, and someone from the commission was standing directly in front of the scale. We're like, hey, can you move over a little just so we can get some photos? And he read the riot act and had a chip on his shoulder the entire weekend, because we asked if they could just get out of the way for a second so we could snap some pictures. And I just use that to illustrate what a complete shit show Texas and their commission is, because in the 16 years since then, it has gotten no better at all. So anyway, that's just tailing your PSA. Expect some bullshit this weekend.
I love it. I'm glad we agree on that, at least. All right, everybody, real quick, we got to shout out the sponsor here, Pub Sports Radio. Folks, what we've been doing here at Pub is some awesome stuff, and we're giving back everything as much as we possibly can. But one thing we need your help for, if you want to see another Pubapalooza where we get all the boys together, we get the personalities in one space, a gambling weekend full of karaoke and beer, help us out. We have a link here, and we're basically going to allow people to help donate so we can set up the next Pubapalooza. And obviously we can do giveaways. It'll pay for the hotel. It'll pay for the trips. Any donations you guys have are going to be super helpful for us to get that next event off the ground. I'm kind of crossing my fingers the boys come to Phoenix, because it'd be cool to have everybody out here doing during pool season. There's a lot of cool hotels and casinos and stuff out here. I've got the hookup. We can make it work. But everybody, make sure you get in there. Shout out to my guy Boston Nick for making sure everybody remembers that. And thank you, Mushroom. Again, just smash the like button, everybody. I wore a Jiri ponytail made out of a cardboard roll for you today. Come on, that deserves a like. Next up, Jasmine Jasudavicius taking on Natália Silva. And Dan, again, I'm not even gonna bother prefacing this one. I already bet this one. I got 1 unit on Silva here. I'm taking the dog. Folks, so what happened last time out? I know you all mock me and make fun of me for my love of Kay Hansen. No, not because of her OnlyFans. I bet Kay Hansen with intent. against Jasmine Jasudavicius. I really thought she was going to be able to just handle this girl. Jasmine's late to the party. She's old. She's relatively completed as a fighter. She's a bit low volume. She's a size bully. I don't find any part of Jasmine's game where I'm blown away or impressed. And because she's 33 years old, just barely getting the ball rolling, I'm also not expecting her to make gigantic leaps or improvements. She fades as she goes down the stretch in a fight, so I don't trust her over the course of 15 minutes. And even in the fight with Kay Hansen, people in their brain are telling themselves that somehow Jasmine just like destroyed Kay Hansen in that fight. Go back and watch it without the beer goggles. Kay was too small to take her down. Jasmine gave up the body lock. She gave up trip takedowns, but she was able to pogo stick her leg up and keep herself on the feet. Kay Hansen got her to the ground a couple times and just wasn't big enough, because she's a natural 115er, to keep Jasmine there. And then in the third round, Kay was boxing her face off. Like, after dropping 2 rounds, Kay finally goes, okay, fine. I'm not going to continue pursuing these takedowns. I'm just going to strike. And she was wrecking Jasmine in the third round. Natália Silva, while she's, making her UFC debut, and I never like gambling on debuting fighters, the only reason I can get away with it on this one is because she's such a big dog. She's 12-5-1. She's got a lot of experience, really difficult to find tape on her. So I am taking a little bit of a blind shot here. But she fought, my girl Rodrigues back in 2017 and got killed on that one. The last fight I did see her in, though, she has these hard body kicks that I really like. She is fast and she has really sharp hands. She always strikes in combination, Dan. And we talked about how these women, when you get the combo strikers, that is the way to go, because they're going to put up numbers compared to the other person's one type of pot shots. She's got, let's see here. She does well with the body lock. So I think that the grappling Kay was not able to exploit is something that Silva will be capable of. She's a BJJ purple belt. She's a natural 125er. So she'll have that size, that strength, something that Kay Hansen was lacking. She was supposed to make her UFC debut back in 2021 and withdrew. That's a bit of a question mark for me, but at her age, taking an extra year off before your UFC debut, I actually can't rate as a bad thing. We talk about these young fighters taking time and improving their skill sets in these big layoffs. I don't know of an injury in this case. I don't think she had a knee surgery. So unless I find something out later on, I'm going to assume she took the time off and has spent the last year training and improving. I just am not that high on Jasmine Jasudavicius, Dan. And the fact that she beat Kay Hansen up a weight class, who was immediately cut from the organization, and now she's minus 255 here, I don't see it. I don't see it. I snagged Natália Silva, 1 unit shot, plus 200. I'm going to kind of let this one simmer as the week goes. I used to bet 1 unit on everything. I seem to be betting 2 units on everything now for God knows what reason. So maybe I add a second unit later in the week. But I think that Silva is extremely live here in this spot because I just don't trust Jasmine. What about you, Dan?
No, I think you made a good case. Kind of my breakdown from the kind of the breakdown from the previous fight, like you said. When there's so many unknowns and you've got a huge dog and a big favorite. I mean, it just take the plus money. I think kind of beyond that, there's enough we know about Jasmine to not like her, and there's enough we don't know about Natália that could also not work to Jasmine's advantage. And like you said, the time off could be a good thing for someone. The one thing that kind of scares me with Silva, I was trying to get a little background on her because I honestly didn't really know anything. She's got one of those scary Tapology pages where it looks like a stock photo, and then she's got a lot of wins that just say win, which always kind of scares me about the quality of that event or the opposition. But no, the youth, I don't think the height and reach advantage for Jasmine is going to be a huge deal. I think there's a reason to take a 2-1 dog in this fight. Honestly, kind of like you, I'm waiting to see where the line goes, but I may kind of double up and do a half unit now and a half unit by decision, just because I think there may be a little value there, just because I could see this going to decision. And if it does go to decision, again, we go back to being Texas and stuff and a close ladies fight. it could be so easy for the judges not to know what they're doing, and we sneak out another win just through bad judging with a 2-1 underdog.
Yeah. Yep. I hear you there. I think we're live here in this spot, Dan. I think we absolutely have another spot where we could get away with one. And I might just do the thing where I bet both these dogs. You know, if you go 1-1, I don't see both these women's MMA favorites cashing personally. You know, we talk about these price tags, and neither of them are trustworthy at this number. Neither of these women have earned these price tags, in my opinion. So I think if you blind bet these two underdogs, you at least go probably 1-1 and lock up a 1-unit profit there with those gigantic lines. So we'll see what happens, Dan. I might end up taking both of them here and hoping to catch a lucky bounce or something. But I also think that, honestly, Silva, I think, can beat Jazz on the ground, and I think she can get her out of there. We talked about not wanting to go to the judges. I think that round 3 prop is extremely live here from what we've seen with Jasmine's gas tank. And if Silva is able to get the grappling going, I trust what I've seen from her gas tank, even though it's against a regional scene fighter. I trust her to be able to go a hard 15 where I don't know that Jasmine can. She lets up about halfway through that second round every single time.
Yeah.
And I like the way that you worded that. We saw enough from Jasmine not to like her. I'm like blindly fading her here with this fighter that might be god awful just because I think she's just not that great. Oh boy, trying to do less of that, but I found myself here in a spot where I really want to. All right, everybody, hang on to your butts. Jeremiah Wells taking on Court McGee is our next fight up. A good one. This is a really good fight, Dan. The first bet that I made here on this card this week. I'm already on Court McGee, folks. I got 3 units at even money plus 100 on Court McGee. I went hard on it. And I know, you know, like I said, 2 units has kind of been my norm lately. So 3 units is not like what it used to be. You know, a 4 or a 5 unit bet would be what a 3 unit bet used to be. So it's, you know, it's about 1.5 my usual bet so far here in the year of our Lord 2020. But Court McGee opened up as the underdog, and simply put, I think the wrong guy is favored here. Court McGee is relentless, the greatest grinder in the game. That cardio for days, weaponized gas tank is something that I want to get behind every time I can. And on top of that, you simply don't finish the man. He's not somebody that you sub. He's only been knocked out once, and he's taken on Jeremiah Wells. I talked about this just a couple minutes ago. He's another one of these late to the party guys. Don't get me wrong. I love Jeremiah Wells. I've cashed a ticket on him myself. Huge fan of him. Love the way the man screams. The crazy eyes are awesome. But he's 35 years old. Just barely he's getting his UFC run going. And he's fought Warley Alves, who in my opinion is a complete bust at this point, and Blood Diamond. Like, God forbid. Like, that guy doesn't even belong in the UFC. Those are his 2 wins. Now, I don't want to undercut Jeremiah Will's skill set. I love the guy. He's high level with his grappling, strong wrestler, explosive physically, solid BJJ. He's got nukes in his hands. This guy is a finisher, and he's able to go in these longer fights. We have seen him go 15 minutes. We have seen him get to the championship rounds. So it's not that he's got a bad gas tank, Dan. It's that I don't think his gas tank can keep pace with Court McGee. And like I said before, I'm banking on the durability of Court, because if this guy comes in trying to blast double leg him, Court's going to get back up. It's not that his takedown defense is off the charts, it's that he wears his opponents out with the get up game. You can't hold Court down the way that you would like to. So I don't think Wells is submitting Court McGee. I don't think Wells is knocking out Court McGee. Wells might have a quick start. I think Court works his way back into the fight and takes over the longer this thing goes. Death, taxes, and Court by decision, Dan. I got 3 units on the guy one last time into the breach with my guy, Court McGee. How do you see this one playing out?
Not that way.
We got a disagreement. All right.
I know. Completely. And I thought maybe you could talk me into it, but I don't think you have. So, no, I really like Jeremiah Wells here. And the longer I wait, the more I like the number. Obviously, money seems to be pouring in on McGee. And I understand the rationale. I just think we've kind of reached the tipping point with Court McGee. And I think that, the age is getting up there, the mileage, he's coming off back-to-back wins. McGee, I'm not super impressed with him. I like Court McGee. I love the durability. I love that he's always in a fight. I just feel like he's maybe not that same guy anymore. And I think this is a guy kind of with enough power and enough go for it that, no one has finished Court McGee. I'm probably going to place a small bet that Jeremiah Wells will be the one to do it, depending on what the line is. I think it's a bad spot for McGee. I think it's kind of a bad matchup for him. I know McGee can be kind of relentless on the ground. He can wear guys down, continually getting out of troublesome spots. I just think I think Wells has the power, and he's going to kind of frustrate McGee. And again, that's not an easy thing to do. McGee's kind of fought everyone. He's been around. I don't know. Maybe it's just some voodoo sense of whatever, but I just feel like this is Jeremiah Wells' fight. And, part of me is just love kind of being a contrarian and seeing this number continue to go up. So I don't know, maybe by Friday, it goes in the opposite direction and I'm not feeling it as much. But if it keeps heading in the direction it is, I think I'm going to love this fight come Friday or Saturday once I dial it in.
I hear you.
Yeah. Sorry, we're not on the same one, but I think we both made pretty compelling cases for a fight that there are, for guys who have been around that we feel like we know fairly well. I think there's still a lot of fire or question marks in this one.
Yeah, I can hear you there for sure. And honestly, it's more fun for the people when we disagree, Dan. People like it when we're not on the same side the whole card. So that's good stuff that we end up on the wrong side on this one. I do think there are cases to be made for Wells. And even though he's 35 years old, I kind of think he's a young 35. He doesn't have the wear and tear on his body that Court does. So there's definitely still a positive there for him in that case. But I'm kind of leaning on the resume of Court McGee because as much as I like Wells, he's been extremely impressive against nobodies. Whereas Court McGee has fought the who's who, been able to survive. And if you're not on a certain level, he just wins. And that's where this is that step up for Wells. Maybe Wells is that level. Maybe Wells is the guy that can get over the ultimate gatekeeper. I'll bet against it until you show me you can do it. So, we'll see what happens. But if you are on the Wells side of things, be like my guy Dan. Just chill. You're going to get a better line. The line is officially flipped. You'll get plus money on the side that you want. And that's our job as gamblers, right? Get the best of the number. So if you're not agreeing with me, that's cool. Just get a good number on the other side.
I was going to say, if you timed it right, you'd get plus money on both guys.
You could have, if you had gotten in early, because I think Wells opened up about minus 140, minus 150. If you got that plus 130 or something on Court, yeah, you could flip and lock up a free night on the other side of it. I'm not really a fan of that personally. I'm not very good at it. And you really
can't get much down anyway.
That's the thing. To make it worthwhile, like you've got to get somebody that's like a plus 180 that gets steamed to like a minus 130 or something to like really make it worth doing that. Otherwise, I'm like, I'll just let my bet ride and see what happens. I'll win more money if I get the dub.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, shout out to my guy Jacksonville. Zoe, haven't seen you for a bit, buddy. I hope you're doing well. All right, everybody, we're going to take a short break here. We got to hear a word from our sponsors, of course. What is going on, degenerates? Welcome back to the Die Hard MMA podcast, brought to you by Pub Sports Radio and Superbook Sports. I'm right here with Dan Stoop, who's hanging out talking UFC Austin. Next fight up is everybody's favorite Adrian Yanez taking on Tony Kelley. Now, there's some serious shit going on this one, Dan. Tony Kelley is a bit in the doghouse from his last fight. This is Mr. KGB if anybody doesn't recall, had the Dirty Brazilians comment between rounds when he was coaching Andrea Lee. Now, there's been a little bit of back and forth, a little debate. According to him, it wasn't a racist comment. He was calling them a dirty cheater who happens to be Brazilian. I think that's a reasonable argument. However, there's a bit of a history, so we don't know how credible that is. But regardless, we've got the world on Yanez. Everybody wants Yanez to beat the brakes off this guy for the things that he said. And the line indicates the bookies thinks that he will. Yanez is a minus 350 favorite. He got plus 260, plus 270, the comeback on Tony Kelley. And I'll just be up front with you, Dan. I think this fight's going to be a bit more competitive than people are expecting. Tony Kelley's only 8-2. He's 35 years old. Another one of these guys that's a bit older, a little light on the experience for what you'd like. But damn, did he come in with a perfect game plan against Costa? I thought that was the spot. The UFC was setting up Costa for a win, and he just absolutely mauled the kid. Gave him a veteran lesson that I was not expecting to see. He's got a good, solid karate style sideways stance. It's very light on his feet. He's got a high-paced kicking game, very physical when he gets in the clinch, good power knees, underrated grappling. He's well-rounded. This guy's very well-rounded. And I thought he was a bit of a cardio case, and we all know that Costa tends to step on the gas and never let up. I'm not sure we can say he's got good cardio because he out-cardioed a guy with no real cardio beyond round one. But it looked like he has made some improvements in that area. It looked like he was far fresher than I expected him to be there in the second round. I may have underrated him. I may have just straight up underrated Tony Kelley. He's got a 52% takedown defense. Not that that will necessarily matter in this fight. Adrian Yanez, 15-3. The man who everyone thinks is really just destined to fight for the strap one of these days. Training with Rufian Stotts and Aljamain Sterling. Fast hands, stinging power, incredibly durable. This guy, you know what? He's defensive is what it is, Dan. He rolls with punches. He blocks power strikes. He manages that range and knows how to get just out of the way of those big power shots that'll catch you right on the end of the punches. I love everything I see about Adrian Yanez. The only problem is he's a bit of a slow starter. He can give that first round away, and then he's got to work his way back into the fight. Now, against a guy like Tony Kelley, if his cardio is not quite what it looked like it was in the last fight because it was against Costa, he might drop that first round, but then as he fades, Yanez gets stronger. And Yanez seems to hit harder the deeper the fight goes also. His counter-striking is on point, and the volume of Tony, unless he changes his game plan up a bit, I think is something that Yanez will take advantage of, because if you keep throwing strikes out there, you're going to open yourself up for a big counter shot. But he's coming off of being a minus 300 favorite and barely squeezing by a split with my guy, Dangerous Davy Grant. So it doesn't inspire much confidence to go back to the well at minus 350 here. Dan, is this number justified? Is Yanez going to put a stamp on Tony Kelley and knock him out? Are we headed to the judges' scorecards where everyone screams robbery because Tony Kelley has some connections in Texas? How are we doing this one, Dan? What's going on here?
No, I think to break down this fight, to consider a bet on this fight, you have to take into consideration kind of the out of the cage stuff. I think this is a fight that the crowd's going to love. Like, the crowd is going to dictate kind of the pace of this fight. And I think these are fighters who kind of feed into that and enjoy a good crowd. I think it could be wild enough. I think Kelley could do enough damage, especially with leg. He's going to have his moments just because he's durable enough and tough enough to hang around. I think he's going to feed into the crowd. He's going to do enough to maybe woo a judge or two. I think he can keep this close enough on the scorecards. Even if he's not really keeping it that close, it's going to feel and look like he's keeping it close enough. Mm-hmm. Where that I think at those odds, I think it may be worth a play. And honestly, kind of tapping into your favorite plays, like Kelley round 3, Kelley a late fight KO. I think he's going to hang around long enough that that's a possibility. And if Yanez, instead of starting slow, if he feeds into the crowd and kind of blows some of his load earlier in the fight instead of later, I think that sets it up well for a Kelley KO. Again, I'm not in love with any of these bets, but if you're looking for an angle, and I'm always looking for an angle, I'd rather watch a fight with a little money on it than not. So I'm always looking for angles, but I think that's the angle. I think it's probably worth a flyer for a late fight stoppage for Kelley, if for no other reason, just because he's tough and he's going to hang around.
I hear you. Okay. I like it. I like the argument there. And like I said, tinfoil hat theory, Dan, like KGB is the Texas sweetheart. You know what I mean? This guy rolling in with KGB around his arm. That's not going to be a bad thing. The crowd is probably
wearing my
going to be
10-gallon hat.
Pro. Yeah. The crowd is going to be very pro Tony Kelley.
Chaps and spears on, walk into the cage. Like, went over those judges before you even get in there.
No, for sure. And like we talked about Texas, there's some bullshit in Texas, Dan. So if this fight ends up being close, guys, I seriously look out for a live bet on this one, because if it's close, if Tony Kelley is eating the shots, if he's not going unconscious and it makes it to the scorecards, you best believe this one might have some shenanigans. So maybe some Tony Kelley split props, maybe some Tony Kelley live bet. Obviously, pre-flop, I like Yanez. I think Yanez should win this fight. But again, the value side of things from a betting perspective is probably with the dog. Yanez is still very much improving and growing as a fighter. I think he's going to be a big-time star. I really do. I got Locker Room swooping and saying that Yanez is actually the hometown boy. So scratch everything I just said. Because if Yanez... Now, I need to see, that's the kind of thing I need to look up. If Yanez is actually from Texas, that totally is going to wash away any advantage Tony Kelley might have possibly had when it gets close on the judges' scorecards. So never mind. Throw that out, wad it up, toss it out. Definitely take a look there. But we got to figure out who's from Texas and who isn't. Because if Yanez is from Texas, then he's never mind.
but I still think kind of the advantage is when you get into these crowd favorite fights, like it's so easy to woo judges into thinking they're seeing something that they're not, or that this shot that missed by 2 feet, but the crowd goes crazy because it was so close. Like they're half watching the fight. All of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, that guy may be there's just a lot of play when you get kind of wild fights, especially in Texas. So yeah, I mean, 2 Texas guys, like, Kelley's not going to have that advantage. But the fact that he's going to be throwing haymakers and probably hanging with them for at least a round or two, weird stuff could still happen.
Yeah, absolutely. Weird stuff can still happen. I tend to be a fan of the Yanez round 3 myself, just because the way he starts slow and amps up the longer the fight goes on. Dude doesn't slow down. He's made out of iron. So you're not knocking him out and you just kind of break yourself on him trying to finish him. I do like the Yanez late KO props. The problem is we never get good prices, Dan, because Yanez is such a hyped prospect right now. It's hard to make money on that spot. I like the live bet angle here because I do think that Yanez probably should win this fight. Tony Kelley starts a little quicker than he does. You might be able to get a better price tag in fight if he drops that first round. Parlay at your own risk because this one could get hairy like we talked about coming down the stretch. But I will stick with Yanez. I'll be one of the Just Win boys this week. I'm usually the leader of the value boys, Dan, but today I'm going to be a Just Win kid. And I think we're going to roll Yanez, if anything.
Sounds good.
Should be interesting though. Can't wait to see the media day and stuff like that with everything Kelley involved. Give me all the drama. Next fight up, Julian Marquez taking on Gregory Rodrigues. Guys, this card is full of bangers. I love it. Julian Marquez, the Cuban Missile Crisis, is another one of these insanely durable action fighters. He goes to war every single time because he's impossible to put away, and he's taking on RoboCop Gregory Rodrigues. Rodrigues is just, I can't ever get over how massive this man is, Dan. He's like a 205er in there fighting at this weight class. Marquez, compact, explosive, hits hard, nice straight punches down the pipe, training out of Glory MMA, one of my favorite gyms over there with Kraus. Man, he is always late for that, alive for that late finish. I'm talking about the round 3 props a lot on this card, guys. I'm kind of bringing it back this week, apparently. Marquez has a 53% takedown defense, did not impress in his last fight against Maki Pitolo. McGee came out and was able to get him down on the mat. I'm sorry, Alvey was his last fight, but the one before that, he was just getting body locked to all hell. He got out grappled by McGee, something awful. Pulls a rabbit out of the hat deep in that fight, gets him late, saves the night, runs off a hero, taking on a much more credible BJJ player this time in Gregory Rodrigues. This dude is big. He hits hard. He keeps a nice measured pace because he's so big. Now, Dan, we haven't really seen it yet, but my brain tells me that Gregory Rodrigues can gas out if you push him. I know he's done a good job of controlling the fight, but just the amount of muscle, the amount of explosiveness that he uses, like my tinfoil hat tells me if you get somebody that can really get out there and put a pace on him, kind of like Jung Young Park almost did, you can get him to slow down, you can get him to tire out, and then he'll be vulnerable. But before that, you don't want to mess with this guy. He's one of these high-level jiu-jitsu guys that found out he can strike, and he's got power. Like, what's not to like about RoboCop? Even when he was almost out on his feet against Ji Young Park, he turns it around, lands a gigantic bomb of a punch, and just puts him away. His last fight, I did successfully fade Gregory Rodrigues due to the volume approach of his opponent. He absorbed 127 significant strikes, and that was only like 4 months ago. I'm a little worried about the durability of Rodrigues here. If he cannot get Julian Marquez out of there, Julian doesn't go away. I could see a late turn the tables type of victory for Marquez when he's the guy that just can push a little bit deeper, has a little bit gas left in the tank. I'm making a lot of arguments for dogs this week, Dan. I like Julian Marquez, maybe a round 3 sprinkle, maybe a KO prop, because I don't see him submitting Rodrigues, even though he's really slick on the ground late when he hurts guys. Maybe a stay away more than anything. I know Rodrigues has shown that he's probably the better prospect of the two, but I got this weird feeling that Julian Marquez just kind of finds a way to win this one. What about you, Dan?
No, I mean, Rodrigues definitely passes the eyeball test. You see that guy, you see him in the cage kind of before the fight starts. It's like, this is a guy who should be beating up some fools. And you know, for the most part, he does. But it's such a weird matchup for this one. I think, like you said, there's no good reason yet to kind of question his cardio and how he'll be in a third round, especially if he's in trouble. But, you know, like you said, we know what we're going to get with Marquez. And, yeah, like you said, I'm always kind of looking for those small underdogs and looking for a reason. And I think there's plenty of reason to like Marquez here just because he's proven that, you know, he can hang around with kind of anybody. And, you know, for my notes, I basically just put down maybe take a flyer on Marquez in round 3 with the durability and toughness, maybe go to decision. It looks like that will be plus money. You know, that's one of those bets where I'm going to wait for the fight week to wear on. But this is a really good example of I'm not the greatest technical guy, as we've clearly established already in this show. I think I'm a good bettor. I'm good with, you know, kind of reading the lines and maybe seeing where there's value to go to decision versus over 2.5 rounds, or just kind of understanding that small underdogs playing stuff. But this is one of those fights where I like to see what people who are smarter than me say. And those are when I'm listening to the podcast throughout the week. I think there's a really good case to be made here. I think you've made a compelling one. I kind of want to see what the other smart folks are thinking with this fight. But there's a few different ways I could go about it. But again, I want fight week to weigh on. I want to take a little more time to think about it. And I want to see what smart folks like you and Luca Fury and Gamblou and the MMA analysis guys, and kind of see where the consensus is on this, because I have a feeling I could be way off or not thinking of something just because there's so many wild cards in this fight. So I'm gonna watch it closely, but I'll probably wait till Friday or Saturday before I really consider anything.
I hear you. Yeah, I'm not quite settled in on this one, guys. I'm a little uncomfortable with this fight, which, you know, sometimes there are fights that I'm ready to jump feet first in on, and some of them I need to wait a little bit and kind of feel it out. I've got an inside source on this one. I might need to see what some of the Gloria MMA boys have to say about this one and the game plan going in before I make a move. My radar right now is dog or pass. And I got a ton of hate for betting against RoboCop in his last fight and successfully got home with a dog against RoboCop in his last fight. I don't like to get greedy going back to the well, Dan. Gambling, the gods have a way of biting you when you get a little greedy, like when I went under 4.5 instead of doesn't go the distance in Jiri versus Glover in my parlay. Like, I don't want to just try to go right back to it because it worked last time. If I can get a good enough read on it, I'm thinking maybe Julian Marquez is live here in this spot. And I think that the accumulation of damage on Gregory Rodrigues is something that we just need to look out for, because he's been clipped, he's been hurt, he's been wobbled, he's making a quick turnaround after taking a lot of damage. So this is the type of spot where I'm going to take the dude with nukes in his hands who has a good gas tank and has a history of finishing in the third round. We'll see. We'll see what I end up doing with it, but lean to Julian Marquez in this spot. All right, everybody, we got just a couple fights left. Some very interesting ones to wind down here. Damir Ismagulov taking on Guram Katutaladze. And my guy Guram is back. I'm so excited, Dan. Guram is the guy for me that when he filled in as a short notice replacement, I found him. I found him as a live dog, and I went to the bank. It was a close fight. It was competitive, but coming in short notice with a big plus line for his UFC debut, I couldn't have been happier. And then the dude disappears. I think he got injured. I think he had some visa troubles. Like, he's just been gone for so long. I've been waiting for my Georgian Viking to get back in action here for me. Everybody, I tweeted this out earlier. I did bet on Guram. If you look at the tweet where I posted the bet, they did like a little mini behind the scenes thing on this man. Go watch it. It's like really well produced. He's hilarious and incredibly interesting. He gives me Jiri vibes. He's like a mountain climbing wild man who talks about living in a constant state of war in his mind. Like, he puts himself in the darkest place possible so that when he gets into the fight, he's having fun hurting another human being. Like, he is my favorite kind of psychopath. Guram is an awesome dude training with Khamzat Chimaev. Like, he's in the right place with the right kind of animals, with the right kind of mentality. I really think he can be a problem. He's got some serious striking chops on him. And in his last fight, he fought a high caliber grappler, good sense of urgency to get back to his feet, able to kick off, able to scramble, good submission defense, explosive kicks. I love the body kicks. And you know that wears on people's gas tanks. He's got a sneaky good BJJ game from bottom as well that people don't quite expect. The problem here, now again, I did bet on him. I got plus 145 on him. He's taken on Damir Ismagulov. And it is terrifying to try to stand in front of Ismagulov. 23-1. This is another one of these fighters, Dan, who is just a good soldier. If anybody steps in here and says, I'm betting on Damir Ismagulov this weekend because it's a buy low spot on him, you're 1,000% right. I can't argue against that. His price tags are always much higher. He does exactly what he needs to do to win. 4-0 so far in the UFC, extremely well-rounded. He knows how to use his reach and his length, fights long. Excellent control of his opponents when he's on the ground. Snappy jab, lightning fast right cross when he decides to go to a 1-2. Good counters, lots of feints, 2-inch reach advantage, 100% takedown defense rating, 65% striking defense in the UFC. Like, there's nothing to not like from Damir Ismagulov. This is my hidden gem, going to war, riding my boy until the brakes fall off spot with Guram Katutaladze. I won in his UFC debut in a spot where everybody thought he couldn't get it done. He's had some time off now. He's an underdog again. As long as there's value on that line until he gives me a reason not to back him, I'm going to war with my guy Guram. Not the most technical breakdown for you. Not the best reason to line up on somebody for a bet, but that's what I am doing. Dan, what are you betting here?
I was leaning Damir. I saw your tweet earlier this week about Guram, and I was like, I'm really excited to hear his reasoning and his rationale. And I think it's just because you have a man crush. I haven't really picked up. But no,
You may be onto something.
Right. I just think there's a lot of unknowns here. I think both guys have had, like, each has had basically one fight since late 2019. There's some tape out there. I think we know for the most part what we're going to get. I think for me, obviously it's a dangerous fight. I don't feel super comfortable. I haven't played this. I'm not sure I'm going to. I feel like at the end of the day, maybe Damir unleashes a little more and absorbs a little less is basically what it comes down to. But at a minus 160, I don't feel comfortable enough about it to make it, something I want to play. And honestly, I like when people I like have their fighters win. So I'm probably riding with you on this one just to see the reaction video.
I hear you. I like it. I hope I get there for you. I want to get there for you on this one. I expect this to be a very competitive 15-minute kickboxing match. Like, these guys, I think that Damir will try to mix in the grappling, but as I previously stated, Guram is more than capable of defending takedowns and even being able to get up from underneath someone like Guram. His last opponent, I'm using his own name here, Gamrot, thank you. Even being able to kick off and get up from a guy like Gamrot, I think he'll be able to do the same with Ismagulov. And then when they're on the feet, I just think it's going to be a chess match, Dan. Like we talked about before, we're in Texas. If we're expecting a very close, very competitive striking match, I'm flipping a coin where I've got plus money on one side. That's what I'm doing here, because these guys are both strikers. They're both going to want to strike. We're in the big cage. There's plenty of room to move. I think the big power shots, the flashy kicks of Guram can be something that wins that crowd over. Damir Ismagulov pumping his jab out there. Maybe he's more effective. Maybe he should win the fight, but Guram can steal this one. You know what I mean? And let's not forget, there's always the chance that one of these guys blows the brakes off of the other one. This is MMA. We've seen time and time again, Dan. Those of us who watch the sport, cover it, bet on it, write about it, talk about it, we still know nothing as soon as that cage door closes. Like, who thought Jiri and Glover were going to go 25 minutes? Like, not a single soul predicted that. So, like, you never know what's going to happen in this fight. Damir may be levels above Guram and looks like a minus 400 favorite in hindsight. The opposite could be true. I think I'm flipping a coin where I'm getting a little plus money. So it's a soft edge. It's a little bit of a blind dart throw. But again, that's what I'm going with.
Can't blame you a bit on that one.
I just can't wait. That's my main event, Dan. Like, I want to see that fight. I cannot wait for that one.
That's the time of the night too, when the crowds is really starting to get antsy for the big fights, and probably 4 or 5 beers in. So I think the crowd's going to be loving this fight.
I think so too. That'll be a crowd pleaser for sure. How could that fight not be fun? The same could be said for the next one. Joaquin Buckley making his return here versus Albert Duraev. And this is a guy who I've been extremely excited about, Dan. Duraev is one of my guys. You know me, I've got the Dana White Contender Series fade. I like to go against these guys coming off the series. I think they've got to get their feet wet. They've got to, take some time. Some of them are legit, but like maybe 30-40% of them are legit. The rest of them are going to end up being thrown away after their, 4-fight first UFC contract. I don't think Duraev's one of the throwaways. I think Duraev is one of these keepers. He's a Russian monster. He's 15-3, and he switches things up so well. He can strike. He can grapple. He's got submissions on the ground. His ground and pound is nasty. He's got power on the feet. Like, this guy is the complete package. He's got everything you're looking for in a UFC fighter. He can body you with big, heavy shots on the ground. He can chain grapple Khabib style if he wants to, if his opponent is dangerous. I think he can do whatever he wants in this kind of a fight. And Buckley, now, are we going to see the return of D1 Buckley? That's the big question, because this guy has been nothing but a flashy showman, explosive striker. Finally figured out that maybe winning pays the bills more than just being the guy that's in a fun fight getting knocked out. So he showed a little better fight IQ against Al Hassan last fight, and he still almost lost it. Dan, if you guys go back and you rewatch that Al Hassan fight, Buckley is wrestling for his life at the end of round 2. And in round 3, Al Hassan almost had him out of there. Buckley ended up playing jiu-jitsu off of his back instead of being the offensive wrestler in that fight. And Al Hassan is the guy that does not win if the fight gets outside of round 1. I think that Duraev is just the paper to Buckley's rock. I think he is a bad stylistic matchup. If Buckley wants to strike with this man, Duraev has no problem trading heavies. If Buckley is allowing this man to get in on body locks and takedowns, Duraev is going to maul him in the grappling realm. And if Buckley's gas tank gives out the way that it did in his last fight, 7 minutes or so of grappling, he's going to be helpless. I think Duraev is a rightful favorite in this spot. I see some people taking the shots on Buckley. I'm ready to line up here on the favorite myself, Dan. How about you?
I don't have a strong read on it. I was actually leaning Buckley. I was surprised, that kind of the opening odds swelled so much against Buckley. I mean, I think you made a very compelling case for why people probably aren't big on Buckley. It's like you said, he still loves to woo a crowd. I think it was 3 or 4 performance of the night bonuses recently.
Yep.
Obviously he's a showman. He knows how to get the win. One thing that kind of concerned me with Duraev was just there's not a lot of big names on his record. We've seen him fade occasionally a little late. Against someone like Buckley, who's kind of always in it or has the shot to stop it. But again, I just didn't have a real good read on this fight. I think it could be a fun, interesting fight, but from a betting perspective, I think you made a pretty compelling case. But once it's minus 200, it's kind of hard to get excited about a bet like that. And I'm not sure I feel strongly enough about him where I'd throw him in a parlay. So I don't know. Probably just sit back and watch this fight and have some fun.
Never a wrong answer. Sometimes saving a penny and not, making a bad bet and losing money is the right way to go, Dan. You
can save yourself a lot of money doing that.
Unfortunately, self-control is not my strong suit. A lot of real split decisions here in the chat. A lot of people are saying that Duraev is legit. A lot of people are saying he's fraudulent. People are questioning his gas tank. Some people are saying that, if Buckley's getting ground on by other people, Duraev can do it too. This is going to be the Twitter main event. This is going to be everybody's fight where everyone's on opposite sides. This is going to be fun, Dan. I haven't decided how I want to approach this one. I don't like parlaying guys when their opponent can just kind of bust the parlay with one shot. So Buckley having that explosive striking game concerns me a little bit, even though he's at that price tag, minus 200, minus 210, where it kind of feels really good to parlay him up and get even money. That's my first impulse, but I also kind of want to pump the brakes on that a little bit because I do think Buckley can just, ruin my night with one shot if he doesn't turn out to be legitimate. So I'm not sure how I'm going to approach it. For the sake of the show, I'm picking Duraev. From a betting perspective, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle it just yet.
I think that's it'll come to you by the end of the week, and I assume it'll be split decision prop or something crazy.
I'll do the lowest possible chance outcome and somehow miraculously pull it out of my ass, because that's what I do, Dan. That's what I do. Tim Means, the Dirty Bird, making his return here against Kevin Holland. Holland fighting at the correct weight class for this one. I'm very excited. I love when this guy is the one with the size and the strength advantage, because he does work when he is the guy with the size and the strength advantage. And he's taking on Tim Means, a perennial fan favorite. Everybody loves this guy. Tim Means is always in exciting fights. Theoretically, Tim Means has the grappling to go out there and expose Kevin Holland's greatest weakness. We all know that Holland is a guy that struggles with the wrestling, and he just got absolutely exposed in his last couple fights where people were able to take him down, hold him there, grind the clock off. Tim Means theoretically can do that. However, I don't think that's the game plan. Like, Tim is not the kind of guy usually that comes in to grind away a boring fight. Tim Means has a bit of a chin concern for me. He's a guy that's been rocked, wobbled, KO'd a bunch. It's a little bit concerning, but he's gone the distance with his last couple of opponents. He got hurt by Mike Perry a couple times, but he got it done. Overall, surprising given how many times he's been finished. 61% striking defense, so pretty solid defensively speaking. Good takedown defense, 66% on the takedown defense, averaging over 5 significant strikes per minute. The guy likes to go out there, be active. But I don't know if that's the move against Kevin Holland. Holland is younger, and he's also going to have a ridiculous 6-inch reach advantage on this man. And if there's a guy who knows how to use that reach, it's Kevin Holland. He averages 3.84 significant strikes per minute. However, Dan, I think that number is wrong. He has been in 2 main event title fights where he got ground on by Derek Brunson and Marvin Vettori. I've got a feeling, my number junkies out there, if you want to take those 2 out of the sample size of Kevin Holland, that significant strike pace probably goes through the roof, because that's 50 minutes where he basically didn't have the opportunity to strike. So if he can keep this fight standing, and again, I think he's got much more of a high success rate at this weight class where he can kind of shove his opponents off of him. He's got a better chance of shucking the takedowns. He has been training wrestling. He's been working on that grappling game. So we might be seeing Kevin Holland 2.0 here. The only problem, Dan, is he's a play with your food type of fighter. We can't really trust him to go out there and get it done because he likes to get in there and have fun. So he could submit people. He's a high-level black belt. He can knock people out. He hits hard as hell. Sometimes he likes to take it a full 15 minutes because why the hell not? He's in there having a good time. It's incredibly hard to trust and bet on Holland. If you had to pick, I'm saying knockout. I think that reach advantage, I think the youth, I think the way that Tim Means keeps a pace will provide opportunity for exchanges. I think Kevin Holland probably knocks Tim Means out. But like I said, I think every single thing is on the table from a finished perspective here. It's not as likely that he'll sub him because Tim Means is a black belt, but he destroyed a guy like Jacare. Now, I know he knocked him out. He didn't submit him, but you know what I mean? Holland, the sky's the limit for Holland right now. We really don't know what his upper limit is. Talk to me about this one, Dan. How are you approaching this one from a betting perspective?
No, it's funny. I kind of, initially I liked Holland enough. I was going to throw him in a parlay. I'm kind of waiting to see where the Holland inside the distance or Holland via KO. I'm usually not huge into the prop bets. Maybe I split it, throw Holland in a parlay and do an inside the distance. But I just think he's going to have enough opportunity. I think he's getting better fight to fight. I don't think Tim Means is. He's a decade older. I think we know what we're getting with Tim Means at this point. I don't think Tim Means has been in a big hurry to finish any fights. And against a guy like Holland, I think that's a mistake. I think a Means comes out with a sense of urgency or shows the ability to kind of corral Holland and slow him down, take him out of his game. But I just don't see any of that happening. And I think Holland's just going to keep chipping away, playing with his food. But I think, especially with a live crowd and this being a pretty big fight for him, I think he's going to have that motivation to put him away. And I think he's going to have ample opportunity to do it.
I kind of tend to agree with you. I do think that he's going to want to make a statement here on this one. And the already concerned chin for me with Tim Means, I don't think that's an accident. I think the UFC has kind of given Kevin Holland a potential showcase fight. If Tim comes out and grinds him for 15 minutes, I'll be a little surprised, but not like all the way surprised, Dan.
But I mean, if you're going to get to that next level, you have to be able to get by those grinders like that.
Yes.
So, I mean, I think the fight makes sense in that regard, even though Holland's a pretty big favorite, and I expect him, to run away with it. But if he's getting to that next level, he's got to get by kind of the crafty vets, and that's what he's getting in Tim Means.
Agreed. And, he is that nice, perfect price tag, Dan, minus 255, minus 240. I do think Holland is somebody you can maybe look to parlay this week. In hindsight, he could look like a minus 1,000 against a guy like Tim Means, potentially. My concern is that he's only a 2-1 favorite and everybody is on Holland. And those are always the ones that kind of get the hairs on the back of my neck to prickle up a little bit. Like, why isn't he minus 400 here, Dan? Like, right. The bookmakers understand the money's coming in on the Holland here. So
I think there's just enough respect for Means. I think people think durability and Holland can go in there and screw around, and a guy like Means could take it. Maybe maybe that's their rationale. But you're right. When I first saw this, I was like, I feel like I should play it now. I think people are going to wake up, and come Saturday, that price on Holland is really going to expand. Just if for no other reason, people love to -200, -300 favorites and parlays, and that's a name, and it looks like it could be an advantageous matchup. So again, you feel like you're getting sucked into a trap, but I think in this sense, it makes sense.
That's kind of the thing. It feels a little trappy. It definitely feels a little public. I still feel like I'm stepping in the bear trap on this one. I'll put my leg out there. You can have it if you got me. Shout out to my guy here, Bub Collins. Clint, been enjoying seeing your big time underdog bets. Thank you, my friend. It's been a good run as of late. Who are a few of your favorite fighters? Ironically enough, Kevin Holland, one of my favorite fighters. My current up and comer kid that I've got my eyes on that's one of my favorites is my guy Jeff Molina from Glory MMA. Brandon Moreno, probably my current favorite champion. I love Cejudo. I'm sorry, you guys know me. I'm a goofball. I'm a sucker for the cringe and how he pisses everybody off just being himself. Really like Israel Adesanya. Love Jan and Glover, the old guard that are still hanging around at 205. The list goes on, man. Those are kind of some of my favorite fighters, but MMA is such a recency game. It's tough because your favorite fighters retire after 5 years. So you gotta kind of keep the stable moving on who's your new next favorite guy. So it's an ever shifting argument there. All right, guys, we only got a couple fights left to go here. Co-main event, Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Joe Lozon. And we don't have to spend a ton of time talking about this one because we broke it down just a couple weeks ago. Bullet notes for the people that weren't here for that last time. Donald Cerrone moving back down to 155 for this one. Concerning to me. Now he made the weight cut and looked fantastic on the scales last time. So I kind of had to eat my words. I said I thought it was going to be a struggle for him coming back down. But damn, the fight got pulled. And it's now just a couple weeks later. The man's got to do it all over again. That's the kind of thing. I talked about that with Fialho and the fact that he was cutting weight 3 times in 3 months. Donald Cerrone is not the fight every other weekend Cerrone anymore. Now he's an old man who's going to retire after his next fight. That weight cut is going to suck. And we can't promise that it's not going to be something that has problems for him, that causes issues. You know what I mean? He could potentially be weakened in this fight because of the quick turnaround. Joe Lozon, long layoff. Chinny is all get out at this point himself, a little bit shot, but I think the long layoff helps. I think the time for the body to recover helps. And when he talked, again, this is where I gotta get the fighter interviews because they did the interviews last time and I loved what I heard. He said he understands that Donald Cerrone is a guy that if you put the pressure on him immediately and you get him out of there, you can get him in the first round. He knows that. We've seen it time and time again. Donald Cerrone, a little bit of a slow starter, and if you disrespect him early, he gets taken out with a vengeance. Now, if you buddy him, if you make him feel comfortable, if you don't go hard on him early, he'll warm up, and then in round 2, he's kicking your ass. So if Joe Lozon still has that samurai warrior approach where he wants to kill Donald Cerrone in the first 2 minutes, I like violence here. I like the under 2.5. I like Joe Lozon. I like Joe Lozon in round 1. Those are all kinds of the ways that I'm looking. Now, obviously, Donald Cerrone can maybe take Joe Lozon's best punch at this point, survive it, flip the tables, but Joe doesn't leave himself any outs. If he goes for broke early in round 1, Cerrone is finishing him at the end of round 1 or at the start of round 2 because Joe just won't have anything left to give. So I'm definitely thinking violence. I lean towards the underdog. I'm going to listen to the fighter interviews before I make any kind of a move on this one. But Dan, this is a dinosaur fight. You might be safer passing. I'm not that kind of guy, so I'm probably betting it. But this one wouldn't be a bad one to just watch. What are you doing here?
I love this fight. It's rare. I've been covering MMA long enough that it's very rare to find one guy who was around when I first started covering the sport, let alone 2 of them. So this is Dan's main event here.
There you go.
No, last time I felt like I was kind of on an island, being on Lozon and Lozon inside the distance. There's really nothing that's made me change my mind since then. I honestly thought more people would kind of come around to my way of thinking. And you made a really good point. I actually just wrote down a note. I wrote a note for myself to bet this as soon as possible. You're right. I think when interviews start coming out, and I think especially after the weigh-ins, I think that's when a lot of people are going to be jumping ship from Cerrone and realize, okay, maybe he's just not – one, it's a combination of I just don't think his heart and his head's in it anymore. I think Cerrone had his most success when he was fighting every other month because it's the only thing he had going on in his life and the only thing he could think about. And I think for Donald Cerrone to be the cowboy Cerrone that we think of, he's got to be in that mindset, and he's clearly not anymore. Yep. And the other side of that is Lauzon is saying everything you want to hear from a guy who's fighting Donald Cerrone in the year 2022. He knows he's got to get in there quickly. I think Lauzon knows that he's probably got a good round and a half in him, and then his own cardio is going to start falling apart.
Exactly.
You give me a guy with plus money who understands the task at hand with two vets who, that kind of feels like a 50-50 fight, but I feel like on top of that, Lauzon understands the stakes and understands the strategy and the game plan much better than Cerrone. I think Cerrone just doesn't really care enough at this point to put that much thought into it. And Lauzon from day one's just been kind of a fighter's fighter, a sharp analysis, understanding kind of the flow of a fight and how to pump yourself up for it. So, no, I really like Lauzon in this fight. I did before. I like it even more now. And I think as the week wears on and we read the interviews and see the weigh-ins and see what Cerrone looks like, I think a lot more people are going to be jumping to Lauzon by the end of the week.
All right. I like it, Dan. I like it. Me and MMA Locker Room on the same page again here, and I like that too. That gives me a little more confidence. But I think my main play here is the under. And this is something that, I love my tinfoil hat, Dan. I love my Friday post weigh-in undefeated show where I try to bet against people that look awful at the weigh-ins, and people get upset because it just never works anymore. But I like to take those types of approaches. And one thing that I've noticed, especially if I'm not already super solid on an underdog, when you're fading somebody who's got a bad weight cut, it lends itself to the under. Not necessarily lends itself to the opponent, but it lends itself to the under because they could be more desperate. They could be more offensive because they know they don't have the gas anymore. They could also go down easier because they had the bad cut. I want to see if this is a rough cut for Cerrone. It's always a rough cut, but the quick turnaround, if he has to do it again and he's even more exposed here, and Joe Lauzon is still coming in with that kill first mentality, I am absolutely going to be loading up on the under 2.5 here for this spot, because one way or the other, somebody's going to sleep and early if that's the plan. Now, if Joe, for whatever reason, is feeling friendly after the delay here, that's going to put a real damper on my plan. So interviews are going to be very important for me on this one, but definitely leaning under and leaning underdog for me.
Yeah, no, I think you nailed it. I think it's one of the sports books here in Virginia has the prop bet where the fight doesn't start round 2 or doesn't start round 3. There may be some value in that doesn't start round 3 with this fight. You're right. I think Cerrone's either going to come out strong and kind of get his moment in that first round of the fight, or he's going to think, okay, well, I gave it a good run here, and especially after a tough weight cut, I probably don't have much in the tank. Even if I do have it, he's going to be in his head. I think that's a really smart play. I like Lauzon in this fight, but the unders, the don't go to decision, I think there's a lot of ammo for that bet too.
All right. Let's do it. It's going to be a fun one, Dan. Main event time, folks. Last chance, smash that like button for me. Calvin Kattar take on Josh Emmett. Dan, Josh Emmett has been my dark horse for a very, 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 very long time. I've been a fan of this man. I love me some power punchers. Francis Ngannou style. I just always love these guys that can put people's lights out. I don't know what it is. I'm a sucker for them. And he is the hardest hitter in the division by far. The problem is he's getting up there. He's getting a little older. He's got some wear and tear on his body, and he's always injured. 37 years old, finally makes it back here, getting that crack. If he knocks out someone like Calvin Kattar, he's probably finally going to get his title shot. I would love that for him. The only problem is Calvin Kattar is such a good boxer. He knows how to fight long. He's got that pace. He's got the volume. He's accurate with his hands. And he showed off some serious durability in that fight against Max Holloway. So I'm a little concerned that even though I'm confident Emmett could knock out a rhinoceros if he wanted to. So I don't doubt him being able to finish, the Boston finisher himself, but I'm also not lining up to play Josh Emmett by knockout here because I do think Calvin Kattar is tough enough, durable enough. Guy is all heart. He's not going to go down without a fight. Like, you would have to really land on him to get it done. And there's just no minute winning from Emmett. He's low output, low volume, looking for that big one shot. Like, besides the Shane Burgos fight where they just threw down, he just doesn't fight that way. So I think Calvin Kattar is going to be putting up the numbers, putting up the volume, winning the minutes. And it's a matter of, does he just die at some point during this fight or not? So as much as it pains me, I have to side with Calvin Kattar, especially with that level up he showed in his last fight. You know, seems like Calvin Kattar on a hunt for gold here, taking it very seriously. The younger man, the taller man, the longer man. Yeah, Calvin Kattar at minus 240 seems like the right side to me, Dan. What are you doing here?
Yeah, no, my initial kind of thought always with a Josh Emmett fight, I have perpetually underestimated him from the first time I saw it. I do that with some fighters where just even, years later, I just still have this image in my head of what I mistakenly thought the first time I saw him. And for whatever reason, I have always underestimated Emmett. This time I went into looking at this fight, like, knowing I've got that bias for whatever reason against him, and I'm not going to let it cloud my judgment. But I still ended up on Calvin here. There's a lot of reasons to like Calvin here. My biggest kind of, hurdle or roadblock is just, it's a 25-minute fight. And obviously Calvin's got more experience with that. But that also gives a guy like Emmett with that amount of power ample opportunity to land something big. And we know Calvin can take punches, but he's also 34 years old, and it's taken 75 minutes of abuse over the past 3 fights. I mean, the wear and tear is going to catch up eventually. Again, I just, the more I look at it, the more I kind of keep coming back to Calvin, despite the fact that Josh is going to have a lot of opportunities to land. I feel like Calvin's kind of a little better everywhere. I think that durability, he's going to need it in a fight like this. He's been in the later rounds. He eats too many punches. At 34, it's not something he's going to break that habit all of a sudden. And against Emmett, that's scary. I just think there's enough else going on for Calvin that at minus 230, minus 240, I like him as a parlay piece. You could probably even hedge it. I think if the fight goes 25 minutes, I think it's clear Calvin's going to win that fight if it goes 25 minutes. And maybe I'm putting too much stock just kind of in his overall kind of output and stuff. So, I could see you even hedging it with like an Emmett inside the distance. I think you could probably get that at more than 4-1, maybe even 5-1. Maybe there's some value. Maybe that's your only play then, just expecting him to maybe catch Calvin, more than 1 out of 4, 1 out of 5 times.
Yeah.
Maybe there's value there, but again, I still think there's just enough to like about Calvin that I couldn't fault anybody throwing him in a parlay. I'm not sure if inside the distance with Calvin's the right way to go. I think maybe some overs or fight goes to the decision props or maybe worse than consideration. But at the end of the day, I like Calvin in this fight. I think there's some danger there, but there's enough to like him in this fight that I would side with him.
Okay. I can totally understand that. Now, I got to wonder, though, with those totals, do you think the main event slot makes a difference here? Because he went 15 minutes hard against Shane Burgos that one time, but Emmett's not a guy that really has 10 extra minutes to work. He's not a main event fighter until now. I almost got to wonder if that doesn't maybe lend itself to us cashing a violence bet here, because they do have 4.5 with the under being about plus 110, plus 120. And we have seen power coming from the Boston finisher. And if Emmett has an extra 10 minutes to line up that perfect shot, like, he could either get outpaced, worn on, too much damage accumulation over those couple of minutes looking for that perfect shot, or he's got 10 extra minutes to land it. I'm just curious your thoughts on those extra 10 minutes. Do you think that is in, I guess, is it in favor of the under versus the over? And do you think that favors Emmett more or less?
I think he's not going to all of a sudden be able to be a 4th and 5th round fighter at the age of 37 to start training for something like that. But I also don't think Calvin has necessarily become a champion in those 4th and 5th rounds. I think he's shown durability and cardio. I think he's going to have the edge there. But I don't know. The more I think about it, maybe not going with a specific fighter, just going, fight to end in round 4, or fight to end in round 5. I think if Emmett gets to that point, I think Calvin's going to be worn down enough, and Emmett's still going to have enough power that he's a live dog even in those later rounds. So I don't know. That's probably one of those bets I'm going to sit on all week and maybe consider. I don't have to pick a winner. I'm just going to pick that it's going to end in round 4 or round 5 for a little bit of a flyer. Yeah, it's hard to know. I don't know what to expect from Emmett in round 4 or 5. I think Calvin's going to be worn down enough that Emmett's still a danger in round 4 or 5 if he makes it there.
Okay. That's fair enough to me, Dan. I think that I think that Kattar is probably the right side here for me. I do think this is going to be a hell of a fun fight. I think we will see some mixed game plans. I think both guys will have big moments. If it's anything like the Emmett versus Burgos fight, which, by the way, guys, I've tried to beat this absolutely to death. Emmett versus Burgos gets overlooked a lot because it's not a main event fight that goes 25 minutes and it wasn't for a title. Like when we talk about the greatest UFC fight of all time, Emmett versus Burgos needs to be mentioned. That fight is incredible. Go back, give it a run, give it a watch. I can't wait to see how this thing plays over five rounds. The Emmett versus Burgos fight actually kind of gives me some faith that Emmett can fight at that pace for 25 minutes because that was a war and he didn't show any signs of slowing up. So I think we're going to be in for a fun one. I kind of lean violence and I lean to the favorite. However, at my heart, at my core, I'm a Josh Emmett guy and I want to see this guy get a crack at the belt before his career is done. So don't be shocked if you see a man love simp bet on Emmett by the end of the week. Again, lots of moving parts this week. This is a really tough card. We're back to the good old grind where all the favorites probably should win, but the lines are probably a little too wide. And you guys know I love trying to snipe a couple dogs in those situations. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to do my best not to give my money right back to the bookies. Dan, thank you so much for jumping on the show with us. It was an absolute pleasure talking about this fight card here with you. I know most of the people in the chat are going to know exactly who you are and where to find you, but I want to give you the floor. Make sure you let them know where they can follow you, what you've got going up over there at the network, and let them know if you've got any shows or any other appearances, anything coming up where they can follow and support you.
Yeah, no, you can find me on Twitter, DanStupp, DANNSTUPP. I'm usually around on fight nights, making bad jokes and having fun with everybody. But no, I recently joined the Action Network as senior editor. It was a really cool opportunity. I'll be in charge of combat sports, so MMA and boxing, plus motorsports and hockey, some of my favorite sports I enjoy watching and covering. We'll probably be bringing in some new writers, trying some new features. I think Sean Zerillo over at the Action Network already does an awesome job. Billy Ward, they do some awesome content. I think we're going to round it out with some even more stuff. I think there are new ways to cover sports betting that aren't being done, and I think we can use MMA and boxing as a guinea pig. So check us out at the Action Network over the year. We got some really cool stuff planned. I think if you're a combat sports fan and a combat sports fan who likes betting, you're really going to enjoy that content.
All right. I love it. Everybody head on over there. Check it out. Love that we're going to get a focus there on some more MMA action and get off my lawn with the $2 late dono saying, let's get the damn bag. I like that attitude. Get off my lawn. I love it. Let's do it. We had a hell of a week last week. We've on a hell of a run these last couple of months. We're going to try and snipe a couple of more big spots, everybody. We're going to keep trying to put some money in the diehard MMA pockets. We're going straight up to end 2022 from here. Thank you again, Dan, so much. Everybody smash the like button on your way out. And of course, stick around here at Pub Sports Radio for your best gambling shows on the planet. That's right. I said it. We're the best. We're awesome. All right. Everybody get out there. Be good. Have a great week. We'll catch you next time.